Oh, shit. Oh, look at that. I'm gone again.
Hi, Tracy. I think we're going live on YouTube, just FYI.
Don't swear, Tracy.
Oh, come on.
Okay, welcome to the May 24th, 2021 Town Council Communications Committee meeting. Item number 1 is call the meeting to order, which I shall do. And item number 2 is the roll call. Tracy?
Council Anderson,
Here.
Council Katerina,
Here.
Council Johnson.
I am here. Thank you very much. Item number 3, approval of the April 12, 2021 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Tracy?
Council Anderson,
Yes.
Council Katerina,
Yes.
Council Johnson.
Yes. Before we move on, I'm going to make an amendment to the agenda because we have our IT person here, Brian Butler. He's number 5. And so we're just going to move 5 to 4. So we can cut Brian loose once he's done. So to make this official, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Council Anderson,
Yes.
Council Katerina.
What if I voted no? No, yes, yes.
Come on now. Councilor Johnson,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, having said that, what we're going to do is move right down to item 5, which is the town to pursue a new website platform. That's in the packet.
She's not here.
And Liam, I'm assuming you can tee this up?
Sure. So I think the necessary background for this is that, I think we've received quite a lot of feedback on our website. Even the previous version, I think there was some, interface and some stylistic issues, which left something to be desired. Last year, IT rolled out a new platform or utilizing a new platform, and Brian's going to correct all this with the correct terminology. But just generally speaking, this is we tried a new thing that this functionality, the searchability of the website really lacked a lot of what we even had in the prior version. But I think what brought this forward at this point in time was the school department's website has a different platform which is going to be expiring. So they had a real urgency to look for a new platform, a new solution in that regard. And the town has an opportunity to kind of piggyback on top of that. And so Brian Butler and other IT staff have done a lot of work to evaluate what options are out there and find a cost-effective solution that he's bringing forward and is going to present this evening for feedback from the committee. Is that a fair introduction?
That sounds great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let me share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so at the request of Liam and Don Beijing, I prepared some slides to kind of go over, just do a general overview of the process behind the platform selection for the upcoming website redesign. So we'll get into this here. So the points that I'll cover, we'll talk about the platforms. So basically, what platforms did we research and how do they compare to each other just from a functional standpoint? Then cost comparison, how do these line up? What is the cost breakdown for each? How do they compare in the near term and then also over the next several years? Functionality, since the decision was made to move forward with Final Site, I'll focus on what are the key, what's the functionality of Final Site and what sets that apart from some of the other platforms that we researched. And then ultimately timeline. What does the roadmap look like from here moving forward to launch? And then what factors sort of make up that roadmap and what will happen from here on to our go live date. So the platforms that we researched, we had 3 of them that we looked extensively at. That was Final Site, Civic Plus, and Revise. These are all website providers, CMS, which is content management system. They're well known within this sphere. All of them focus on some combination of municipal and school websites. As these, with these companies existing, there's a lot of competition between them. So some of the functionality, there's overlap. I think you'll see some of that in this table, but I'll focus on some of the key things that we looked at. For more of a breakdown, I think Liam, you provided some extra material prior to this meeting as far as the rubric. So there's a more in-depth look at some of these options in that rubric that you can refer to if you'd like. So within all of these, one of the key things that we looked at was customization. Based on feedback from the current website, that was one area where it kind of fell short. And when we were looking, we were trying to find something that would allow us customization from a visual standpoint, and then also be able to manage users internally with whatever platform that we chose. So with that in mind, Final Site offered a high degree of customization. Their user management got very granular. That was something that we saw in Civic Plus as well, although it was a little bit more rigid in terms of our customization options. And then Revise offers a fully customized option. Typically how these work is you select from a library of templates, and then from there you kind of move forward and build out your site. And that's an area where, in collaboration with the communications team, with Allison, that would ultimately be, we choose one of those templates and move forward with one of those as we built out the site. With all websites, sort of an industry standard is a redesign every few years or so. So that was another thing that we considered when looking at some of these platforms. So for Final Site, the redesign can be done at any time using their CMS. And then for more in-depth design, there might be a cost assessed. Civic Plus offers a free redesign every 4 years as part of your service. And then Revise, it's dependent upon what type of, basically what you do, because everything, their entire site that they build for you is customized. The price is sort of dependent upon what you do. So there's not a set price for that. As I mentioned before, each of these has a library of templates to choose from. Final Site had the largest library of templates to pick from. Civic Plus, I'll show you in the next slide, or when we look at the cost breakdown. Civic Plus offers a few entry-level themes that you can choose from, but is, as I mentioned before, pretty rigid in how you can customize those. So that was a factor. And then also, being that our town uses Google's infrastructure, that was another key component to deciding which platform to use. Final Site plays well with Google, as does Civic Plus. Revise does not as much. And then the timeline for development. Final Site had the shortest time frame for development. Civic Plus and Revise had pretty similar timelines, with about 6 months or so. Final Site was the shortest at about 14 weeks, and that kind of depends on the size of the site. So moving on, cost comparison. You kind of see a breakdown. Each of these platforms usually has a upfront cost that includes theme design, customization, and so usually the first year is higher than subsequent years. For Final Site, it was broken down over essentially 5 years. So that number that you see there is the cost per year for 5 years. Civic Plus was a bit higher. That includes an implementation fee. And the annual cost is a little bit less than Final Site at $68.90 for years. I believe it's 1 through 5 after the, or sorry, 2 through 5. Revise also had that initial upfront cost that was higher, but also had the lowest annual cost thereafter at $3,900 per year. I put a couple footnotes in there because Civic Plus, as I mentioned in the previous slide, choosing those themes, that is the cost for their very basic tier of service in terms of choosing a theme. All of these offer some degree of complete custom design, but when using their templates or their template library, the pricing is based on the standard tier. Does that make sense? So basically, Civic Plus, I've, based on some research, can go anywhere from this price upwards of well over $100,000, depending on the modules and components that you use to build out the site. Final Site's price includes a couple modules that were added on that include Audio Eye and an advanced site search. And Civic Plus, I mentioned department headers, just to quickly explain what that is. A lot of times for other municipalities, they'll have a public safety, police, fire department, they'll have their own sort of unique branding and feel to their page, which is part of the homepage. But the way that it's built up is a little bit different and requires its own department header to give it sort of that unique feel. So you can kind of see, like, depending on how many departments wanted to utilize their own department header, is what Civic Plus calls it, the price would add up very quickly. And the price on there does not include any of those. So it's just a brief breakdown of the costs that we looked at when sort of assessing these. And all this information can be found in the rubric that we created as well. So functionality, ultimately the decision was made to move forward with Final Site. So why Final Site? Out of all the platforms that we looked at, we found that Final Site had the highest degree of customization. That included everywhere, basically a span from what the site looks like, the feel, the template library, to the type of user management that you could do within the platform. And that's really important when we're looking at using these platforms to build out staff intranets as well, how you manage users that are logging into the site. As far as the visual customization, based on the templates that we looked at, we found that the Final Site templates had the best combination of user interface, user experience, and content management, basically how you organize and present things like PDFs and files and news and that sort of thing. That's all done through their file manager within their CMS, which is actually a really robust system. It has a large number of modules that can be used to build out site pages to give them more of a living feel, more of an intuitive format, ultimately making it easier for people to navigate through the site. One thing that was of interest and has come up before is the site search capability. The quote and the tier of service that we acquired with Final Site has something called advanced site search. One of the nice things about the advanced site search is it gives us a lot of tools to make a very powerful search within the site. Just to start, some of the differences between what we have now versus what we will have with this. Things like events can be searched. That's something that if you just want to know when the next council meeting is or the next communications committee meeting is, you can type that in and your search results will yield the dates for those meetings. Things like synonyms can be set up. If you have a page where you use the word children, but also the word kids should yield results, or basically any pages that have that word should also yield results for a page that had the word kids, you can configure that so that you have better search results. And then ultimately tags and metadata. Tags are something that we use now currently. It's something that we'll be able to continue to use on the final site platform. PDF metadata can also be used, and that's where individual PDFs are configured and can help add to that, basically the power of the site search, essentially. Sites are fully responsive, meaning that they're going to look great on your laptop, your giant desktop screen, your tablet, your phone. One of the concerns now looking at the current website is that depending on the resolution of the screen, you sometimes get these scroll bars and things don't scale quite properly. This is something that would be addressed using Final Site. One of the big, as Liam mentioned, big benefits to using Final Site is that the town and the school district can be on the same platform. And that helps sort of keep everything under one roof. It helps with staff training and being able to basically keep everything in one company. It's easier than jumping from one tool to the next and sort of splitting it apart. Translations is something that's also supported. You can select, basically language translations is something that would be able to use with the Final Site platform. As I mentioned before, intranets are supported. Google login for staff is also something that Final Site offers. And one of the biggest things is the communication tools. Being able to subscribe to individual, basically content on individual pages and receiving notifications for that content. I know in the past we had found a solution to kind of deal with some of that. This is built into Final Site's platform. So I think it would help answer some, or basically meet some of those needs that have been expressed in the past. So examples of Final Site, I have a few here that I can pull up if you'd like me to go through a couple of these.
Yeah, grab one, just grab one.
Yep, sure. So this is a school district website, but it just sort of showcases some of the design features that can be used on Final Site. As you can see, it has a much more living feel, slow fade with some of the menus. You can see sort of some of the animated text as you hover over the elements. News feed down below. And granted, I know for a municipal website, it's not going to be maybe not as content heavy on the main page as this, but this just sort of shows you some of what is possible using that platform.
Good.
So, yep. So timeline, roadmap moving forward. Being that we are developing the school website kind of at the same time, there is some overlap. I believe you also provided the graphic that has this one here, sort of has components of the school and the town. So moving forward, just the plan is for in June to sort of have some of these initial planning meetings, with July and August to be set as a time for focus groups and getting some community feedback, so that we can use that to help, build a site that is going to capture the needs and interests of stakeholders and members of the community. September is set for the official project kickoff date, where we meet with our project manager with Final Site. And then moving forward into October and then out through January is where we would establish that theme selection and then actually do the build out of the site. Once that is finished, we do the final testing, do our QA, and then staff training to get people prepared to be able to add content to the site like they do now. And our proposed go live date is February 22nd. I know that's just sort of a very brief overview of that timeline. There are more components sort of in there, and some of those are shown in that infographic, but this is just sort of a rough breakdown. And that's it. There's a lot that could be shared about the final site itself, and that's just an overview. But at this point, if you have questions, I'm happy to try and answer those.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, good job, Brian.
Thank you.
Any committee members have specifics? Yes, Jean Marie?
Yeah, I hope this works well with Max. Apple,
Yeah.
because I know there've been issues in the past with the municipal website and or the school stuff working with Apple products.
Yeah, and actually, Final Site, the way they build their sites to be really responsive would work well with Mac. In fact, the demo that I did with our initial rep did the entire demo, and he was using a Mac on his side.
Oh, cool.
So that was kind of
Good.
I saw it from that side, and even had to ask, is like, are these components going to work on Windows too? So sort of from the opposite approach, but yes, yep, full functionality on Macs as well.
Great.
I have a question, Brian. So it looks like the schools are getting their site built in a couple of months, yet it's taking the town 5 months. So what's the difference in time frame between the two? Do we just have more things we have to migrate over, or what's driving that longer timeline on the town side?
Yeah, I think a large part of it is the initial kickoff and some of those steps that we're proposing on the town side, like community feedback and focus groups, aren't being done so much on the school side. So we're trying to allow time for some more of that feedback to flow in. Whereas on the school side, right now, because Google's deprecation date for classic sites is September, essentially, it will be mostly just getting the content from the old site over to the new platform, and then making larger scale changes later on. And then on top of that, there is a lot more content on the town website than there is on the school side. So those things combined have sort of extended that timeline. So hopefully, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, and
Okay.
that's great to hear that it's to get community feedback. What about staff feedback in terms of ease of use? Because I know a lot of people probably on town staff are using the website today to add and post things. So have the staff been involved, or were they involved in the selection to make sure that it's easy for them? I know Allison, I'm assuming you maybe do stuff on the site. You too, Tracy.
So from my understanding, I think some consideration has definitely been given towards that. Being that a town website redesign was done pretty recently, within the last year and a half, to sort of alleviate some of the fatigue that might be associated with switching to a new platform in a relatively short amount of time. I think the strategy is going to be taking the content that's on the existing website as well, moving that over, and then also providing staff with adequate training during the time frame to help make that transition a bit easier and less of like a hard shift. So
it is different. It's definitely a different layout than what the current site is. That being said, I'll go and update certain pages of the website now, and then the formatting will be off. And so that's where I come to Brian to save the day and kind of like fix the formatting for me. But on this new website demo, they showed me that there are we pick the settings of like what fonts we want for the headers and the body, and then it becomes default. So no matter like how you enter it in, it'll just convert to that. So I think it might be a learning curve to try to get staff to to adapt to this new site, but once you're on there, everything will look more seamless than it does now.
I think the only thing I'd add too is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but one of the things we liked about Final Site was that staff did have the ability to make changes themselves, where there's some other platforms that were a bit more prohibitive around, they actually needed the vendor to make updates and changes. So not necessarily an eye towards ease of use, but certainly accessibility and staff ability to make those updates.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. When I mentioned during one of those slides that permission management, one of the really cool things about Final Site is that, you can get very granular in how, like, if you only want, this is sort of a broader thing, but you can only use this font and this format on these pages, or if there are certain users who they can only post on this page. You can go as far as to set up workflows to make sure that, like, before this becomes live, it goes through this person to approve or say, yes, it looks good. But even if you don't set that up, the site can be configured so that anything that a person puts in, it's going to automatically meet that styling that has been set up for the website. So you don't have like all caps here and some highlights and Comic Sans in one paragraph and Times New Roman in another. There are sort of guardrails for all of that. So
is there a strict prohibition on Comic Sans everywhere?
I think there should be.
Okay.
Papyrus too, maybe.
So the focus groups that I heard soliciting resident input, that's going to start in June. That's like 2 weeks away.
I think it said July.
Okay.
And that is something that I think we should talk about more too, because I was glad to see that as part of the process that IT had developed and laid out. I think that's really important. But I would think that this group would be helpful in determining how that happened specifically. I don't think that was really fleshed out in detail. It's more of just putting that in there.
Yeah, it's a bullet item, right?
Yeah. But I know when the last website was rolled out, it was kind of thought about that the focus group came after the launch of it
Right.
to get reaction. And this one, it's kind of almost like spearheading the process. But I think that would be helpful just from the transition of the current site to that, to really learn about what anecdotally we have some thoughts about, like, oh, it's all about this search functionality, but for others, or if we brought in a focus group or a survey, we might find out something more that
Right.
we hadn't been talking about as much.
Looks good. I mean, I think our IT department's done a good job with what you had, even though, probably with the blunt or the brunt of a lot of the comments, we knew it wasn't anything personal. This looks good. I'm glad we've made a decision to do this. Any other questions from any other members?
No, I'm glad to see that we're all going to be getting on the same page, so to speak, between the municipal and the school board,
Right.
because that's been crazy, since I've been on the town council, that they're on two different platforms and they didn't talk to each other, and it's like, that made no sense to me. But
I think it's a pretty aggressive timeline. That's just my 38 years of being in IT. Anybody says they can deliver something in 14 weeks, I'm going to go, okay. I hope so. I mean, I wish you the best, but usually that doesn't happen. We have we're just losing support on Google Sites. Is that correct, in September? It's not going away. We're just losing the support for it.
Correct. So over the past couple of years, Google Sites has transitioned to Google Sites still exists, but it's their new Google Sites.
Right.
And Classic Sites is what the old town website was built on and what the current school website is still built on.
Oh.
And so once that time period, once September, I believe September hits, all Classic Sites get archived and then it can't be used anymore.
Right.
So
yeah. Ken, I was going to ask you, based on your experience, do you feel like on the town side, the timeline is good? Because one of my reactions when I saw the timeline was if it does shift, that could get us into budget season. And I don't know if we would want to migrate to a new website right when the budget season starts, just because it could create confusion with the public. I'm assuming that's one of the primary drivers sometimes, is when the budget changes. So I'm just curious, like, do you feel like the timeline on the town side seems good?
Yeah, well, I think we'll have to wait and see, and I'm sure there'll be, go live as a cutover. So if we need to extend the current platform, like, just, we don't have support for it, but it will be there, right, Brian? It would be there. Because, right, we may,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we may be into some critical aspect of the town business or something that the website will be, it's definitely used for the information. So we'll watch that.
Yeah, and if we stick with the current schedule, but I hear you, Ken, because I've never seen a website launch that's on time, but that's all right. Nothing against the IT people, but it's
That's
just the
right.
way the way the world works. That if we did schedule it for late February, it still gives you some breathing room, because people don't really tune in on anything on the budget till April-ish.
Yeah.
So I think it gives you some space there. So good question, though.
Just to quickly add to the current town website, that uses the platform that uses basically works with Google Drive. So even though Classic Sites is going away, the current town website won't be affected at all. And maybe that's what you said, but I just wanted to add to that. So
Great. Good work. Thanks for sharing with us. And the packet is pretty robust itself. So I'm going to put that off to the side and review that.
Oh, if I could just ask one more real quick question,
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Just speaking as someone who's of an elder age, and knowing my own limitations with using websites, whatever, and I actually use them all the time in work. So I've got more skills on it than most people my age or older. Is this going to be easy to use? Like, we had someone ask us, and anyway, I'm not going down that road, but you couldn't find dogs on the beach this weekend. And to me, I'd be like, just put in dogs and see what you get, which is what I did, but that's another story. But again, I'm assuming, but I should never assume, is that we've looked at that for folks who aren't, they're marginal at best at using websites and making it for ease of use.
yeah, so one of the things you mentioned before with the advanced site search, I think we'll really be able to leverage that to make like some of those searches yield more results and just sort of be more powerful overall. Also, something I didn't really talk about during the presentation, but one of the modules that we have with our final site service is something called Audio Eye. And with that, and so all these platforms are very big on ADA compliance. To add on top of that, we have this Audio Eye module that provides tools in the sidebar of the website, essentially, that can be clicked on. And so for someone who is hard of hearing or has eyesight issues, then they can use some of these tools to make it a little bit easier. I do have I don't know if we have time, but I do have a site pulled up that I can just quickly show you what that looks like if you want. But it has a number of things, from actually being able to play and hear the words repeated on the site. And then also a reading tools where you can click a button and it actually has a line that you can track down the screen to help read, highlighting different headers, just a number of things. It's a pretty powerful tool.
Why don't you send us the link on that, Brian? What we can do is take that offline and explore those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that. I used to work in rehabilitation, so I'd be really interested in seeing what you're doing with that.
Great. Sure.
John, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, one thing that this was making me think, just looking at some of the site examples, and Allison, you might already be going down this path, is how can we better integrate the e-news with the website going forward? Because it looks like it has more capabilities and features to add stories and things like that, that the current site is a little bit more kludgy. It seems to be able to do stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, you know, that might be something to think about, like how the new website, the current e-news maybe morph, so that way, rather than the e-news being so dense in terms of topics, is there a way to use the e-news as a means to get people to go to the website and see the details? That just might be something to consider as we go forward.
Yeah, Brian might be able to speak more to this, but at least when I did the demo, it was really neat to see like that there were added features that we don't have on the current site now, that there would be opportunities for us to use. Like I could build out a whole form right in the website and it's embedded right in. So there could be some sort of like subscribe feature within that. There's also the ability to create a whole email and send it out through the website. I don't know if I would use it for that, but just for other departments who would want to send out an email directly through there. And then the way that the town news was displayed on some examples that were shown to me, it was just, it was very polished, and you could see that it would be a good place to drive people from the e-newsletter.
And those connect directly with Google Calendar. So the way that we currently schedule events, the town meetings and that sort of thing, basically would get sucked into Final Site and then interpret them on the site in that nice polished format that Allison's talking about.
Good.
So
Great.
Oh yeah, he did show that like you can have one master calendar and then put check boxes of like multiple calendars. So there's layers of like all of everything shows up on one, or on certain pages only like one certain type of calendar would show up. So that was another thing that stood out to me.
Right. Any other questions? Again, Brian, thank you very much. We'll cut you loose.
sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks,
Well done.
Brian.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Now we're going to jump to item number 4. Backtrack, which is a discussion on the community survey RFP draft that is embedded in the packet. Good job, Lynn, or whomever.
Allison deserves the
Great
the
job.
credit for that. Yep.
I've read it a couple times, and I'm assuming this, once there's a selection made, it's more of a back and forth engagement, right? Because they'll want to know more about us, we'll want to know more about them. So I wasn't going to spend time about trying to plug holes in the questions that were listed or the topic, right? There'll be plenty of time for that, correct?
Yeah, that's our understanding of the process. That we certainly want to give them the best idea, maybe with a broad framework of what we're looking
Right.
for and what we expect. But yeah, it'll be an interactive process with the selected consultant to refine what that survey ultimately looks like and what areas it goes into. So we don't need to have that be an exhaustive list of questions and areas
Right.
at this point. But if there's something that we've omitted, we should look to include it out of the gate.
Right. So could you just explain the RFP process for those that may not be familiar with it? I being one, and I'm right in the middle of one on my association, and I'm clueless. I'm going, how come they're not answering me? So we go directly out to them. Is this published in where people know where to go look? Yeah, just how is that process done?
Yeah, both. So we certainly, we're already familiar with probably 3 or 4 entities or firms that do this type of work that are local. Certainly the RFP will be published publicly as well. So anyone who we, theoretically looking for these types of things will be able to find it and respond to it should they choose. But we'll go to those specific firms to make sure they're aware of what we're looking for and that this is an opportunity. And again, I think that, Ken, you've referenced a few that have prior experience working with the town of Scarborough. And I think that we've also been made aware of some education-based, university-based divisions or centers that do some of this work as well. So we'll make sure they're aware of it. And we'll go through the process. We'll put it out, we'll get them back. I think this committee can go through those RFPs and we can work on a selection process, and then it kind of kicks off.
Okay. And when does this start? when does it actually go out?
Depends on how comfortable you are with the draft.
Okay.
And how comfortable you are with whatever changes you want to see staff taking those on. If you want to bring it back for a secondary review, or if you're fine with giving it the green
Okay.
light with those subtle changes.
Well, let's just get a pulse on that if you want. I'm fine with what it is, because again, I'm not looking at this to be all inclusive. It's a great start. And I feel the sooner we can start the process, the sooner we can get things moving.
I leave it to those who are more skilled at writing RFPs than I would ever think of being. So
Yeah.
it looked fine to me on my cursory read through of it. So
Yeah, I think I had more thoughts, Ken, on other topics that we would want to include, which again, I can reserve those for later discussions when we meet with whoever is doing the RFP, if we want to kind of hold those. But my only
You could share your thoughts. We're always interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, maybe, well, I can share those real quick, knowing that we can, table those for later discussion when we meet with the vendor, because it could have the tendency to get too big, and I don't think we want that either. But some of the things that I just kind of jotted down that I didn't see, and again, this was just a quick list from what I saw from the list yesterday, was, maybe considering surveying on affordability and housing choice. That might be one area of interest.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking, and again, maybe this doesn't have to be the venue for it, but do we want to get a sense from people on the response the town had related to COVID? Again, just to get some data from folks in terms of, how the town did. I think this was included in there, but I just jotted it down too, like just in general, town communications, how well are we communicating? One thing I was thinking too was, and I don't know if there's a benchmark like this, but I know in the private sector, we have the Net Promoter Score, which is, really kind of a gauge of loyalty, which is really around the likelihood to recommend a business. And so I'm just wondering if there's something like that exists from a benchmarking perspective, that's like the likelihood to recommend Scarborough to a friend or colleague as a great place to live, or something along those lines. I included environmental protection and sustainability, again, just trying to get a feedback from folks of how we're doing there. Inclusivity and diversity. And then just some other thoughts I had were, and again, this probably isn't the right tool for this, but knowing the downtown committee is doing work and the charter stuff, I'm assuming will be advancing potentially for the November ballot. Is this an opportunity to use this tool as a means to get some feedback on some key things around the downtown committee's work and the charter committee's work?
Yep. Definitely some thoughts.
Yeah, and the only thing that I think might be worth including in the RFP, again, for you guys for discussion, was, again, going back to that concept of benchmarking. I think it's great to understand satisfaction or whatever it is that we're going to be measuring. What would be really good, though, is to be able to look at that through the lens compared to other towns. And so I know as part of the RFP, we talked about other, like they need to provide references from other towns, which leads me to believe that these vendors would have municipal experience, but trying to play up especially in the results, not only knowing how do people respond to the questions, but how does Scarborough compare to other towns for similar questions, I think would be also insightful.
Yep, good idea. You mean similar to that one that I think I sent out to you, where it benchmarked, I think, Sioux City against the national averages of something. Yep.
But other than that, I mean, I thought it looked pretty great. It was pretty comprehensive.
Yeah. And again, I'm thinking, good points, and I'm thinking too that once we get, some replies, that's the opportunity for the vendor to sell themselves to the tech, because that's what they're doing, right? They're selling their practice to us. So I'm, anxious to see what comes back. And we can do this for you and this and that. So that's where I think the real conversation starts. But good points. Yes, Liam?
Yeah, I think those are all great areas too, and I think that they should absolutely be in the forefront. And I think some of them we should probably look at the RFP, and if those are really important to the group, we should put them out there so that the consultant's kind of aware of that interest. I think one thing that kind of stuck in my mind though, as John, you're working through your list, and as we already have a fairly expansive list, you know, Ken and Allison and I did meet with a group from the Cutler Institute that doesn't do any of this type of surveying directly, but they do. It's a data innovation project, and we kind of started touching. I think I even raised the idea of surveying the community on things like inclusivity and diversity and things like that. And I think at that point in the conversation, you know, their kind of comment was, you know, this survey can't be, you know, the end all, you know. And so I think that one of the challenges that, you know, just to this process is going to be, you know, this survey can be whatever you want it to be, but it can't be everything. And so really identifying and so as we look at what we've done for these sort of every 10-year surveys, you know, we've had a few, I think my math is right. I think two of the three have been focused pretty squarely on growth and development. And then another one was really based on sort of municipal service or municipal services satisfaction. And so I think that will be, as we start thinking about the next steps in the process, I think that's going to be the challenge of this committee to kind of refine down that list as to what is it that we really think is the most important. And I think the only other comment I had is the ad hoc committees. I absolutely think that we should poll residents on where they stand on maybe what the recommendations are, what's coming out of it, or where the discussions have gone. I think that's a great one for you know, a smaller scale survey, or one that, you know, using our jot form, right? I mean, those are very specific and targeted, and maybe looking at, you know, these surveys that we're doing once every 10 years, looking at what do we want to really check in with, again, even if it's every 5 years, what's an interval that we want to look at that benchmarking period.
Yeah, if I could just say something, like, for example, with the charter, that's going to go out to the voters in November. So there's your ultimate survey.
But we're going to be debating it as a council right before.
Right.
Like,
But
I know the committee.
You're not going to have this done by then.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So that's
because if
right,
it's going
probably
out, we got to get it decided which ones are going out the beginning of September, which ones are going on the ballot. So.
And again, I think I'm going to wait to hear the experts, because you're right, it can't be everything, but let them tell us, you know, what can it be? How big? Where's the diminishing returns? You know, if it's after 50 questions or something, we know, yeah, it would take direction from them for sure. But definitely good. Go ahead, John. Yep.
Yeah, I think the only other thought, and again, I think you guys alluded to it in the RFP, that would be interesting would be to take the comp plan, assuming that the one we have moves forward, have them look at it and determine how would we, you know, through a survey measure our performance relative to the comp plan. Because again, you know, some of those topics I mentioned, I just thought of, and then when I read the comp plan, you know, we have the strategies, the vision, the guiding principles. Those are all things you could potentially survey on. Not that we would have to do them all, but like, you know, how are we doing delivering that vision? How are we doing on those strategies from the public's perspective? How are we doing, you know, with those guiding principles? Are we really excelling at some and not doing great at others? You know, I think that's another way to look at this, is like taking the comp plan and in some aspects, like that's where I thought of like environmental sustainability, because I think that is part of the comp plan, but not necessarily a department, but it's something that I think the town is striving to do to be environmentally friendly.
And you could probably catch that with an environmental flavor to it, because you know, just my personal take, I would say probably 5% of the people in town know that we have a comp plan and what it is and why we use it, right?
I would say less than 5%. From my own experience on the council as the senior counselor.
However,
they look at you and go, what are you talking about? What are you talking? Yeah.
Using things like in the comp plan for part of the survey. Yeah, I mean,
well,
I am sure that's why there's a lot of things in the comp plan, because actually coming from the prior surveys. So remember, we did a lot of policy changes in the town of Scarborough from the 2000 survey. And that was land use. It was actually services also. So, and of course, we could always add the category, your public officials. How do you rank them?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
happens in November, okay?
there you
When
That's
you
right.
run for
That's
office.
true.
She's just throwing everything to the voter. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Well, I was just gonna say with Allison here, I think we're gonna go from 5% on the comp plan to like at least 6%, right?
Yeah, it's just getting started, right?
Yeah.
Now's the time to get that number up.
Yeah.
So I think the temperature here is to move forward. If you want to maybe add, I think there was in there something about the environment in there, and I hate to, I'm definitely not minimizing the value of our environment, but I think we did take care of the environment in there. But if you remember when we had our conversation with the vendor, and we did talk about the inclusivity of things, they said they had just did an add-on, because that's a new discipline, to a new awareness. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be there, but maybe add something like that in there, and I see it good to go. Because I think no matter who comes, they're not going to be everything that we want either. So I just want to get the exchange going. So
Great.
Do we need to do we need a motion to move on it? Do we need to be that formal, or do we just?
no,
Okay.
I don't. Jean Marie, you're the parliamentarian.
No, I'm not. I just got distracted by a client. I'm sorry. You could take a vote. You could take a vote. It would make it a little more formal.
Yeah, we could.
know.
Once you do a motion to just move forward.
Yeah. I move that we move forward the RFP process as delineated today.
Second.
Okay. Tracy, you want to call the vote?
Council Anderson,
Yes.
Council Katarina,
Yes.
Council Johnson.
Yes. And again, great work. Whoever did it, Allison, Liam.
Allison, she did it.
Liam did it.
Okay, moving right along. Item number 6, e-news and leader topics for June and July. So we're going to be, the next one for the e-news and the leader is going to be budget related.
Budget, right. June 1 and then June 4th for the leader. And I think you can use the same article for both, right? The leader and the e-news.
Yeah, you can. Maybe sometimes with the leader version of it, you can expand it, or based on the timing and all that.
Right, based on the
Yeah,
timing.
you can. And so for that, because of that, that's got to be, the lead article's got to be done by 5 o'clock Thursday, this Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anybody want to step up and take that?
This is for the.
I've already stepped
You
up.
have, you have. I just wanted to see how engrossed you were with your client.
I am very engrossed. I'm trying to change it. They're driving me crazy. I'm sorry. I'm on a time limited thing here. Just ignore me. I'm listening.
Do we not already have somebody? Because I think I could take the lead for this Thursday, and maybe we can make it a finance committee article if it's due on Thursday after tomorrow or Wednesday.
Right.
We want to kind of talk about what was approved and what the finance committee recommended.
We're kind of doing for the town in the know piece, we're also doing a budget article. So, but I think it'll be more about not just finance committee, but the Wednesday meeting. I just emailed over Ken some ideas. I don't know if,
Right.
Yeah, but it could be like about the whole process or the most recent update.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely factor in the vote, final vote. You don't have to even wait for that vote, I think it looks like a positive thing. It's gonna definitely stress the June 15th date to vote. It is June 15th. Right, and maybe something about things that come out of this process, but won't be on the ballot until November. Some of the cap items. So if you still feel comfortable going with that, John, you can go with it. If you don't, I can pick it up. What do you think?
I'll do it. I can do it. I'll partner with you, Allison, and we'll get something crafted.
Okay.
This
sounds
is
good.
this is for the leader, correct?
It's
Yeah,
for
which
both.
you would need to submit this Thursday,
Okay.
then, right?
And then it will be in the e-news the end of the month.
On Tuesday, yeah, a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, so again, just what Allison was saying, staff is going to submit an article, be from one of the Allison and Tom or I about just a summation of where the municipal budget as approved on Wednesday night stands. So, projected, probably a summary of new initiatives and what the projected tax rate will be and spending. And so this would be kind of just a good summary article on that.
So we would want this to be somewhat separate, like we wouldn't want to
Right.
duplicate. Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Do you
defer to the counselors, but just so we don't, to the degree there's a coordination at a level where it's not duplicating information.
Or I say something wrong that is incorrect, and you guys say something opposite.
Allison will be the clearinghouse for that.
Uh-oh.
Do you have anything drafted up yet?
Do I? Do we? Oh, it's so early in the week, Ken.
You don't know how we operate, I
Oh,
guess.
no, wait a minute. You've got to be done by, don't you have to be done by Thursday too?
Yes, that's
do,
what
but-
Thursday morn's for.
But yeah, but
It's only Monday.
we don't know what
Right.
the answer is until Wednesday night comes. and goes,
Yeah,
so.
I have a riveting meeting to watch on Wednesday night.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be about 20 minutes. All right, John. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Okay, and then July, right? I mean, right after budget, what's in the pipeline? What's brewing?
Vacation. I'm away, so don't even bother.
I think I just heard Jean Marie say she wanted to write something on the comp plan. Is that
Nope,
what I heard?
nope, I'm gone. I'm all gone.
But you can write it now,
Oh,
and we can hold it till July.
technically it would be due by the end of June, so that's still in the June
No.
timeframe.
Nope, I've had enough of the comp plan. I've been looking
Alright,
at
so
that
we can-
sucker since 2017, so
We got the comp plan.
done.
The 2 residential committees, when are they wrapping up?
Charter's wrapping up shortly. We should be seeing that shortly.
The downtown.
Beginning of June.
I don't think the downtown will probably go at least through July. I'm guessing right now. We haven't officially changed the timeline, but they're planning a community charrette for some of the work that's going to come forward. I think June 22nd. So it could be an opportunity, timing wise, to share with the community what came out of that charrette.
All right, well, I'll definitely grab July. And I don't know what it is yet, but it will be something fantabulous. Okay, we're good? Okay, Liam, number 7, any public comment?
We have one person in attendance. If they would like to raise their hand, if they'd like to make a public comment. I'm not seeing any public comment.
Okay, future agenda items. I think again, a reason why we're asking about the RFP, is it too soon to say the next agenda in our next meeting?
When is our next meeting?
Well, it's supposed to be the
Technically, it should be the second Monday of the month.
second Monday of the month.
What's the date? What's the date on that?
June 14th.
I'm away. I'm out of town, baby.
How about June
I'm
21st?
I'm catching up on weddings.
How about you? Are you here June 21st?
Hold on.
Because remember, there's a rumor that July might be canceled for the town council.
That's what I'm hoping.
And that's canceled committees, cancel everything.
Right.
What do we think about meeting the last Monday of the month, the 28th? And if staff can turn around the RFP, since there's very few changes, I
Yeah,
guess I want to talk with Tom about an appropriate timeline. I'm not sure if that's a 3-week thing, or again, I would expect that the people who do this must have a pretty decent kind of canned response. So
Mhm.
Ken, why don't I circle back to you tomorrow or Wednesday?
okay.
And why don't we tentatively say the last, and we can maybe review RFPs at that point.
I mean,
That would work for me. I'm around the 28th.
I couldn't do the 28th. That's my anniversry. So I think my wife
Well,
would.
that's what? The anniversary of what? No,
Well, we know where his priorities are.
Yeah.
not really.
I just don't want to tell her I have a meeting because then
Smart
it could create
man.
problems.
Smart man.
How about I consult with Tom tomorrow, and Ken, you and I and Tom and Allison touch base midweek, and then we look for a date towards the tail end of June
Yeah.
when we can review RFPs.
Okay.
We're not going to be on cycle anyway, so as long as we had provided.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, it'd be the RFP, and then, again, we'll talk about the articles coming up. So, and by that time, I think, you said the community engagement for the website was July, not June, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well, he had put on the timeline July, I believe, July and August. Yeah,
What are your
that's a good
thoughts? Are those
point.
going to be in-house? Those going to be WebEx driven or Zoom, or what do you think?
I haven't given it thought. I think that would be a good thing to talk about in this meeting. So maybe we could possibly bump that timeline where it would start in August, and then it would give us time to talk about that in the next meeting.
Okay,
I'm gonna suggest not doing anything with community engagement until mid-August. And the reason I say that is, again, from long experience, most people take their vacations, or they're away, or they're this and that. And at mid-August, you start getting parents coming back because sports are starting and whatnot. So that's why, like, for example, Summerfest is where it is. That's pretty much the beginning of people coming back to town.
Mm.
So, although Summerfest is going to be truncated this year, because I saw they aren't doing, like, normally it started, like, I want to say noontime or something, and they'd have all sorts of vendors and whatever, but this year they're not going to do all of that. They're going to do some vendors, but it's going to start in the evening, and they'll maybe in 2 hours before fireworks. So, because part of me, where I'm going with this, I'm sorry, I know I'm babbling here, is that in the past I have done community surveys at Summerfest for the town council. Thoughts on this or that, wander around, talk to people with a clipboard type of thing.
yeah,
But this year that wouldn't work, which is too bad.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're probably still a little ways away from that.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, yeah, because the concerts in the park are going to start in July too.
Yeah.
I thought about passing out just a little well-designed card about trying to get
Mhm.
people to, sign up for the newsletter. But COVID killed that. But, I think I think people might be receptive to taking now a piece of material. I know I would.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they're
That
doing
might be
the
a good
concerts in the
timeframe to start that up.
Yeah,
and they are doing the concerts in the park,
yes.
Right.
summer.
starting in July.
but because I'm the liaison to the chamber, and they're trying to decide exactly how they're going to set them up, and given God only knows what,
Right.
the restrictions for people's comfort level with doing
Yeah.
things. So
Yep. Yeah, so maybe we, because I would like to, and again, I know Liam, I think you probably tried to find the materials that were from your predecessor. You probably didn't locate them.
On which area?
The
I think
be
I dropped the
informed.
ball.
We were just trying to do a little cute little design, be informed.
I kind of remember seeing those. I'll go back and look.
Yep. Hey, because I'll tell you what, because it's a very minimal expense. You can print cards for, $50. I'll do it myself, get it. Just so when you go out, you go to a concert in the park, you go to some event, you're just passing them out.
Mhm.
It's a law of large numbers, right? Sooner or later, somebody will sign up. Okay. Get away from me. I'll sign up. Just get away from me. I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, God, you're such a marketing genius, Ken. You want a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second,
Counselor Anderson,
yes.
Counselor Caterina,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson.
Yes. Thank you very much, folks. Liam, you know how to get a hold of me.
I do.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everyone.
Take care.